I recently had a local leader ask me about mission and vision and all of that goes into congregational leadership. And I told him it's an excellent question and there's a lot of confusion about it. People use terms in different ways. And so I thought some teaching on this topic would be very helpful. For me, at least, there's three basic tasks that you need to think about in terms of vision and mission and all of that. The first of those is what you're about. What is your purpose? What are you about as a congregation? And for me, I would often describe this as mission or your mission statement. A lot of folks use that in a different way, but whether you call it a mission statement or a vision statement or a purpose statement, I don't care about the terminology, but what are you about? And then secondly, how are you going to accomplish this? And for me, at least, I think this is something that gets missed a lot of the time. How are you going to accomplish it? For me, I'll use the term your strategy to accomplish your mission. And then third, what is your current plan to accomplish your mission and strategy? In real time, what are the specific plans? So I'm going to use those three terms: mission, strategy, and plan. You can use whatever terms you want, but these three basic ideas, I think, need covered somehow in the life of your congregation. So let me describe them in a little bit more detail now. First, let's talk about a mission statement, and I'm sure you're familiar with this. There's a lot of literature out there on this, but it basically is what defines your purpose. What are you about? It needs to be concise, short enough that it just captures what you need as well as having the purpose. I always like the description that it should be short enough that you can read it on a downtown bus passing by. So good and concise. It also needs to be clear. Shouldn't have any jargon or anything that someone would hear it and go, well, what exactly does that mean? And it should also be memorable. Ideally, it's something that folks within the life of the congregation have memorized. We actually use ours as part of worship every week so that people have it memorized. And then last, it should be inspiring. It should capture a hold of your heart. It should make your heart beat a little faster. There should be some passion around it. I'll give you a little example about this. I was visiting Fox Chase Cancer Center, and I came across this placard that they had of their mission statement. And I remember thinking, if myself or somebody I love was in this hospital, I would be inspired. I would be touched. I would feel good about their mission statement. And I think if I worked there, I'd feel good about it as well. So you want the mission statement to be inspiring. So then let's talk a little bit about strategy. And as I said earlier, I think oftentimes we forget about strategy. How are we actually going to accomplish our mission? And I thought about this in a lot more depth just a little while back. I was at the Rethink conference, and somebody put it as clearly as I've heard anyone say. They were standing on stage, and they were talking about strategy, and they said, come on, let's be honest. Most of our mission statements in congregational life in churches are very, very similar. He said, we're not going to find anything wild or, way out there. Basically, they're going to be all some version of the Great Commission. Helping people grow in faith, helping people grow as disciples. They'll all have some kind of element like that. He said what is really distinctive in congregations is, do they have a strategy? Do they have a specific way of accomplishing this? A great book that covers this in some depth is Simple Church. And in the book Simple Church, they talk about movement and process. Movement and process. How are you going to move people along? What's the process for helping people grow as disciples or to grow in faith? Or I also like the way that Tony Morgan, who has a consulting group, talks about a path. What's the path that your congregation and the individuals in it are going to be on in order to grow in faith? Then last, what is the plan to actually accomplish that mission and strategy? And we all know the value of plans. We all know that if we don't plan for a vacation, probably a lot less likely to happen. You need to make those concrete plans, and the same is true in the life of a congregation. What are the specifics that you want to accomplish in order to live out the strategy, to live out the mission? What's the timeline for those? Who is accountable for them? What are the specific plans? I remember learning a number of years back, after a large study had been done about growing congregations, that growing congregations had plans. They had missions, they had a sense of passion and excitement, but they also had a specific plan in order to accomplish that mission. And that plan will not be perfect, but it does indicate some motion. Like all plans in our lives, vacations, for example, they may not turn out exactly as you planned, but if you had a plan, you're much more likely for a lot of it to be accomplished. And the same is true in the life of congregations. That movement helps them to gain momentum, even if some of the things don't go as well as are planned. So I thought it might be helpful just to describe, at least in the context of my congregation, how we've come about with these three different areas. So our mission statement for the congregation I serve is helping people grow with Jesus. We actually use it as a part of worship every week, so people have this memorized, helping people grow with Jesus. And at least for me, and I think for some key leaders, this is inspiring to us. This is what we are here for, to help people grow with Jesus. And then you may notice that GROW is printed as an acronym. And that acronym is actually our strategy. It comes from the word grow. So our strategy is gather into church, to gather people into church for worship, and new folks gather into church. Relationships that bless. That is what the church is about. Relationships with each other. The building could change, the leaders, the pastor could change, but it's about the relationships in that place. Observe faith practices. There are some basic faith practices or disciplines that help people grow in faith. And then work for God. How are you living out your faith? That is our strategy, and it flows from our mission statement. And then in our context, we have a vision plan. We developed it in 2014, and then arrived with it in 2015. And it has 35 specific tasks that we expect to accomplish over the next 3 years under those 4 strategic areas. Well, I hope that this has been helpful to help you think a little bit about mission, strategy, and plans. And as always, if this has been helpful, I would encourage you to forward it on to some other leaders and to begin some conversation about mission, strategy, and plan in your context. Take care, and God bless.